Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Talking Spirit with myself, Jared Vaughan. Of course, we are joined by Chris from Lorna Vigils, Paranormal
Good.
Investigation, and of course, Lorna's making a debut on Paranormal Living's podcast. So today is an exciting episode. So for many of those may have saw, we did go to the I'm going to say ancient ram in there. I don't know why. To
No,
Newsham Park in Liverpool. This is a review episode to Newsham Park, and
yeah.
it was. I did put this on the status, and it was true. It was the most messed up, craziest night I've ever had in my life on investigations. And obviously, we're going to talk about that in detail. And
Yeah.
if anyone's got any questions they'd like to ask as well, just put them in the comment section. But let us know who's watching. So we've got Simon on. Good evening. We have Claire. We've got Aaron. We've got Shirley Mullen. Shirley Mullen, does she go on your? Been with you
She,
before?
she is.
I
She's
thought
one
it
of
was.
the regulars up in Scotland. She
Yeah, I
is.
thought it was. There's no pictures bringing
Yeah.
brought up today. It's just saying names. And then, of course, we've got Janice on.
Yeah.
Thank you for the love arts already, everyone. Very much appreciated. So, Talking Spirit, one of the things reason we started doing this is for people to share their experiences and how, even though a lot of us go down different paths, we all end up at the same place in the weirdest way you can possibly think. And of course, we've got different mediums on. And Chris is our second time on the show. First time, if you
Yeah.
go back, he did get to talk about Lorna Vigils, which I'm going to let him do again in a moment. So, Chris, if you want to let us know a bit about yourself again, mate, and a bit about your company, and then Lorna, it's your
Yeah.
turn, and then we can get into Newsham Park.
Yeah. So we set back up in me and Claire set back up in 2019. 18, sorry, 18. God, I'll be getting a slap clip around the ear in a minute. So yeah, so we like to keep it kind of small and intimate. We You get these big groups, and obviously Newsham, it was a bit different with Newsham with the guests that we had there that night. But it's about portraying a real investigation. Sometimes it could be portrayed on TV a bit differently to what it actually is. And it's just about getting to know the truth, basically. Is there something out there? So yeah, I love doing it. I you know me, Jared. You've been with me now. I'll hold my hand up. I'm a big scaredy cat, but I've began to push myself a little bit, and I did that at Newsham, I think. So yeah,
Yeah, mate, honestly. So I've said to you that I've been on a few companies to investigation. I'm not saying this just because you're on the show and obviously getting to know you, but it was the best group I've been with. I felt more comfortable and you didn't feel sort of out of place or
yeah,
someone were maybe doing something that, when sometimes stuff happens and you're like, is it me or is it someone in the group? And I genuinely never got
yeah.
anything like that with your company.
We we always kind of. I like to treat everyone as family and friends when I'm on, and the team members, because the energy of the group on the night helps spirit activity. There's nothing worse than sometimes having a group that's kind of like for arms folded. And I always use the scenario at the beginning of events with the guests on any event that we do. You walk into a pub, right, and you've got one group on one side, one group on the other. You have a group having a laugh and a joke. You have a group who have got their arms folded. They're not talking. They're not having a laugh and a joke. Which group would you go to? You'd go to the one having a laugh and a joke, wouldn't you? So we always kind of create that relaxed atmosphere on our event. So I like to think we do anyway. So it just makes it easy for our guests to get participated in the night, because it's such a big thing. The energy of the group, it really is. It really is.
Yeah, definitely. I think we had a good energy in our group as well. So Lorna,
Right.
I will come on to you because people may have not seen you before. We did it. Lorna has been on with us before when we did an episode on the Pendle Witches when we went to New Church Cemetery. But do you want to let us know a bit about yourself, your sort of interest in the paranormal world, and the funny car story on the way down as well?
I'm Lorna. I'm very new to the paranormal sort of investigating type stuff, but I went to New Church with Jared, like he said. We went to the graveyard, and that were really cool. And then we went to Newsham, and that was like a completely different experience. There was nothing I've experienced like that. Um, I think I want to, because I've come from quite sort of I wouldn't say a skeptic, but I needed something to make me truly believe in it. And I think that, the experience at Newsham, which we'll talk about later, was really what did it for me.
I still, honestly, I'll just remember that forever. So she said it. She's literally said in the car that I want to experience something. I want something to physically happen, and then it did, without giving too much away. But Chris, were you going to say something then?
Yeah, so was that only your second ever one, Lorna?
Yeah, I've never really done it. I mean, I did, like, being like a teenager and stuff. I'd go and explore like the old buildings and stuff, but I never did it with the intent of having a paranormal sort of experience. I never went out to seek that. But this time, I think the mindset that I went in with was different. I were a lot more open to it, and sort of, I think, yeah, it were second time. Hopefully more to come though, because I did really enjoy it.
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
brave. That's brave to only do it for the second time to go to Newsham.
After realisation of it afterwards, it were a bit brave.
Yeah.
It was, honestly, guys. Like I say, we're going to go into this, but it was the craziest. It's great. I've had some weird experiences, and sometimes when you look back, you're like, that were a bit messed up, but this were like on a whole new level. So one of the first things we're going to talk about, obviously, of course, is Newsham. There it is in all its glory. It is the coolest. It's honestly. So I want to, for you guys as well, I want to know. So obviously, Lorna, we'll start with you first. Your first thoughts when we pulled up on the side of the road, and I know you were absolutely buzzing, and you were FaceTiming everyone like, look where we are, we're here. But what were your first thoughts as you literally got to the building and then getting into that sort of courtyard area?
I don't.
It's go on,
Sorry.
Lorna, go on.
I think seeing it, I mean, because you can look at it and you can even look at it from that picture there, but you truly don't understand how vast the building is and how, really what it's actually like until you're there. It really takes you back.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What about you, Chris? What your, especially you got to be in there before everyone else and did the pre-walk around before the investigation started as well.
Yeah. So it like Lorna said, it's just the vastness of the building. It's just absolutely huge. And then you've got obviously the dilapidated, I can't even say it, state of the building. But I think what went on in the building, you know what I mean? If it didn't have that kind of what went on the building, yes, it'd still be a wow building. But I think the fact that what went on in that building, as well as the vastness and the state of it's just. I say the holy grail for UK paranormal investigators. I do.
No, I agree that it was just like you say. It has this mystique and this aura around it anyway. Just like you say, because you look at that, and even if you walk past it, you naturally go, "That's got to be haunted," just by looking at it. Never mind until you actually get in the whole place. But it is, and even like the drive round. So as you're getting onto the courtyard at the back of the building, which is where everyone parks, just that drive round, and obviously it's eerie as anything. And it was still, it just started going dark at that point. But just even the drive round, it takes a lot longer. It's the most mind-blowing place ever. And like you said, that's before we got in.
Did you drive round, Gerard, or did you walk round with me?
No, we drove round.
Right, I remember saying to the guests, you think it looks good from the front of the building. Once you come round this corner and you see the vastness from kind of the back and the shape of it, you kind of get then what it is. It's just takes your breath away. It does.
Oh, absolutely. Honestly, even like you say, if anyone goes past it, it's just take a minute just to take it in. It's unbelievable. And I think that sort of presets your judgment as well before you walk in, because you're naturally going to go, oh, that's something creepy about that place. So then obviously as we got in there, we all met in the main hall. Like I said, we unfortunately really didn't get many pictures, so I managed to go on Google today and get as much as I could. But like even everything about the whole place, even though it's sort of a bit derelict, I know Lorna said she can't wait to peel the paint off the walls. She was talking about that just because you'd have like this constant peeling of paint. But just walking in there, it's just this aura and this mystique of the creepiness of every room is like unbelievable.
Yeah. I think that part where we did the talk, where we got the photos up there, even just walking into that part, it's just you walk in and that vastness of that room again. It's just it does. I'll say it again. It just kind of takes your breath away. You know what I mean? It really does.
I think, well, because it's got that like really old sort of like Victorian like architecture to it. Like I kept saying to Jared when we were there, like I wonder what this room was like. I wonder who's walked on this floor, and you're like trying to imagine what it possibly could have been back in its day. Like what? Because I mean, I don't know if we actually do know what that room was for, but you know, whether it was like a ward or like sort of like I've imagined it'd be like a sort of canteen kind of area. But even like, you know, the huge windows and everything, it's stuff you don't see anymore. So I think that's like what's, you know, really cool about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What were your first thoughts? Have you been there before, Chris? Sorry, I should have
Yeah,
asked
so
you that.
that it was only my second time. I
Oh,
went
right,
back
okay.
in January 2018, but this was before we set up. Me and Claire set up Lorna Vigils. It was as a guest, so it was the first time as holding an event. It was, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it was just. It leaves me speechless. It does. I mean, the run up to it, then the drive down with the team, Cam Allen and Robbie, getting to the hotel, and then driving up to Newsham itself. It was, and then getting there. It's stuff of dreams for paranormal investigate. It really is.
Yeah, I guess from your point of view as well, you've seen both sides of it by just going on an investigation, then to holding your own event,
Yeah.
which is a completely different side
Yeah,
of
yeah. I
everything.
was panicking a little bit, to be fair, because I was worried because I'm terrible with areas and things like that, and my memory of where things are. I remember walking around with Cam Allen and Robbie and even Alan, who's very confident and very good with them sort of things and directions. He said even he was going to get lost. So I was like, oh great, if you're going to get lost, then
It is the amount of stairs. I've never done that much walking ever. Um, Honestly, it's crazy. Like everywhere you go, there's a staircase or there's just a massive walk, and then you're still looking behind you in case there's something stood behind you.
Yeah.
oh yeah. Did you check your step counter before you left?
I didn't even think about that. My phone was in my pocket the whole time. I'll have to have a look at that one. So, obviously, we all did the main meeting point, as I mentioned here, where we were. So, all meeting in here, and like this was good as well because, as you mentioned, it were a smaller group. It wasn't over full because, as I mentioned, when I went about just over a month ago, it was a bit too busy. And then you got the big mishmash of people who are skeptics, people who are just there for a bit of fun, who not really that arsed. And then you get people who are genuinely maybe done paranormal things before or really interested in the paranormal. As the one thing I actually enjoyed about with you guys is everyone seemed to be very up for it. Even with the skeptics, everyone was quite open minded.
I think you've got to be. You've got to be, or you kind of shut yourself off to that side. I think I mentioned that on the first episode with you, Jared. You've got to have that open mind to it. You've got to kind of. You don't have to believe in it, but open yourself up to the possibility of it happening.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's happened to you, Lorna, that night. I think you've kind of opened yourself up, and you've kind of realised that's what potentially could happen.
Well, that does lead us on to that perfect point with Lorna's. Honestly, this place we're going to talk about next, and the last place we went into were the most, as I say, I don't use this lightly, but the most messed up part of the whole evening. It was the craziest part where I've never experienced that like this. So we did got. This is not the best picture of the room, but it's okay. So moving here, this was in the laundrette, and this is the first part of the investigation. So they took everyone down, and then we all started calling out. Obviously, the lights went down. An amazing experience. I know Chris wasn't obviously with us at that point because were you doing the long vigil at that point?
Yeah, I'd pushed myself. I'd stupidly said about 3 months ago to one of the groups I was doing with one night. I'll do a lone vigil in the Naughty Boys corridor, and that just stuck for the rest of the few months. So I had to do it. I didn't really want to do it, but I went and pushed myself, and I did it. And I tell you what, I'm so glad I did it because it was an experience. It really was. But
Yeah.
let's see yours.
Yeah, so the laundrette, Lorna. So your first thoughts of walking into this place, what did you think?
Initially, so to get to that room, it was like down in the basement, like the cellar type kind of thing. So we went down this like initial flight of stairs, and even going down there, like the atmosphere was, you could feel it, like this like heaviness came over you. So we'd gone into that room, and pitch black, torches were out. Everyone were calling out. Everyone were like doing their own bit and saying this, or like trying to get reactions out. They were the lady that we were down there with, called Cam. She called out. I'm not sure if at this point, I'm not sure if we had a name. We heard a couple of taps and things, but then we got outside of the room. It was like a long stone corridor, and we heard this rock just go across the floor outside. And I remember, I think she might have radioed Chris at that point, but you were upstairs on the naughty. We knew it weren't you.
No, definitely not me. I was too
No.
busy. Too busy. I was going to say a naughty word then, putting me pants upstairs.
But we were all stood in like this, like a huge sort of circle around like this table. I think I'm not sure if it's the right word, but I'm pretty sure we're an EMF reader. And I think, Jared, you got a few names. What came to you?
Yeah, it was. I think the one good thing is because when you feel comfortable as well. I'll say this before this bit is you feel more open up to it. Where you're like, if I say something, I'm not going to feel silly, and even if it's I'm not too sure, I can just say it and no one's going to judge you. And that's what I liked, and that's why I felt really comfortable. And I was saying to you, Chris, even before Lorna jumped on, like it was nice to be with Lorna because she's on the same kind of mindset as me, so I could say something, and even if it was just me and her just having a chat, I didn't feel like an idiot saying, I just felt this, or I'm seeing this, am I going insane? But yeah, so you could see the energy around the room, and I mentioned about the shadow in the doorway, but the funny thing is, and everyone did this, when it's pitch black, you point in the bit where you can see something, and no one has a clue. I'm like, I've realised you can't see me pointing.
Yeah, I do it all the time.
That was so
all
funny.
the time.
The amount of people who did it. And then at first you're like, I wonder if it's just my eyes getting used to where we are. But there was definitely shadows. And then a few people mentioned they could see the shadow in the doorway. But it was like if someone were either peeking around the corner or just like edging to come in. And then at one point something went past us all. And I think quite a few people just saw this, I don't know what it was, this energy or whatever it was. And then you could see, I remember turning to Lorna, like, can you see like the mist or like this energy or whatever it was? And she could see it herself. And I'm like, that's weird. And then I mentioned about this experience, and I said this afterwards, like, sometimes a few people who may be watching have had this experience, including yourselves, where, when you're dozing off and you're half and half, but sometimes you see faces or something coming towards you and then it backs off and it looks a bit weird and a bit deformed or whatever. And they say it's spirit, and it's just spirit coming towards you, showing themselves and then moving away. And I could genuinely see like a woman's face, and that's the first time I'd physically seen something like that. Because normally with me, it's sort of using your third eye, that side of it for myself. And I could see this, and then there was like this light, and then all of a sudden, Lorna turned to me and said, "I don't feel great." So I will let Lorna take over now to tell you exactly what happened from that moment.
Yeah, it's weird because as I remember Jared saying about the fog. And I remember I said, I was like, is there someone stood in front of us? Because we're in this huge circle. It filled that entire room that you can see. You can't tell the size of the room, but it was quite a big room. And I remember saying, is there somebody in front of me? And Jared was like, I don't know. And I remember I just said, I'm going to pass out. And I just dropped to the floor in the middle of this room. And then I came round and they had like, they were Cam and someone else with like torches, and they were like, are you all right? And it was like, I don't know if you ever, when you have pins and needles, but it's not the needles anymore, and you can feel that sort of, it were, the only way I can explain it was like sort of like an energy, and it sounds, but it was like I could feel it in my hands, that I knew that what had happened wasn't, because there'd be no reason for that to happen, I'd eaten, I'd drank, I were, normally healthy. So for that to happen, I think so in time with, saying there's someone stood in front of me, that really freaked me out in that room.
Yeah, we mentioned. Sorry, Chris, go on.
Yeah, so did you actually lose consciousness, or was it more than just like a no?
it were. It felt like
It
for
was just
like
like a
maybe
dropping of yourself to the floor, was it?
yeah, it felt like this heaviness, like I couldn't stand up anymore. But I didn't go unconscious because I remember sitting on the floor and my eyes then suddenly went from, being like looking around the room to like wide open as if to say like what has just happened to me.
Yeah.
And then Cameron, I'm not sure the other guy's name, he sat me on this chair. And all I remember thinking was, I hope I'm not sat in the same bloody chair as them. What with this like guys who's just done that?
Yeah.
It was funny because as we were driving down, on the drive down, I was talking about psychometry and I was talking about a live we once did last year and holding on to this padlock and like this sensation sometimes you can feel and how you can read energy of specific things. And it wasn't until afterwards we were talking about it when you mentioned you had your hand on this metal like trolley or something for the whole time while we were stood there. And you said you felt a bit not wheezy, felt a bit like you could feel your body rocking at parts as well.
Yeah, like with that, I don't know whether it were obviously like your senses are, because it's not very often that you walk around in like the pitch black. So I think my senses were,
Yeah. Yeah, your
um,
senses are heightened in the dark, you say.
yeah, but it were weird. Like in that room as well. Like I think everybody else there was, they seemed like quite seasoned people who'd done it all a lot before. I think that there were one lady who she was calling out every 5 minutes. She loved it. I think she had a little white bobble hat on, but I think I genuinely was bricking it when I were in there, and I think I don't know whether that, whether the energy will go off that, whether it works on fear or whatever. But as much as I weren't saying it, I was terrified down there.
It was weird down there because it is funny because you did say I want something to physically happen and then you dropped like a sack of spuds.
Yeah,
But I've never experienced that ever. I've never seen that ever happen. And it's when you're in that thing and they're like ready to kind of like 1 minute. I'm like, I don't know what to do because she said I'm going to drop, so I put my arm out to grab her and she's just gone. And I'm like, everyone's like, you're alright. I'm like, she's dropped. I'm like, I don't know what to do. It was a weird. And honestly, I've never experienced it. I'm like, what has happened? And then it was weird because obviously we mentioned about the energy, and I think you're probably more opened up than what you thought you were. Just naturally happens
Yeah.
sometimes when you go into places, and you're probably more sensitive than what you thought as well. And it just happens sometimes. And the spirit's probably just come in and said she wants an experience, and it might be easier to communicate with you rather than anyone else.
Yeah. You don't normally put yourself in that sort of situation until you do that sort of location or that sort of venue, because you're
yeah,
not putting yourself in that sort of energy that building or even spirit itself has left behind. And you like I said before, that kind of energy and residual energy as well that's kind of been left in there is just phenomenal. It really is. It really is. So you kind of, and this is what I don't know whether you took part in the white light at the beginning of the night
Yeah,
with
we
Cam.
did, yeah.
You did, yeah. So this is why we always say about laying your boundaries with spirit, because if you're respectful to spirit, which we always are, they'll always respect that boundary that you want to lay. So it was interesting the fact that, what did you want to happen, Lorna?
sorry, I'm just laughing. I didn't realise you could see my boyfriend let down.
It's all right.
I think I did want. I'd wanted to be like, maybe like a tap or something, or like, not when they speak, like getting like touched on the head or anything like that. I'd have been completely open to that. I think I'd still have like, been terrified of it, but I think I'd have been a lot more open to that than reopening my eyes and being sat on the floor in that room. It were intense.
Well, don't worry, I was sat on my own upstairs rocking back and forth as well, so you're all right.
You
You're
know,
all right. Literally on the walkie-talkie, literally every 2 seconds.
It's all right. Oh, she's off for a walk. The good thing is when you see the audio version of this, you'll never know anything what's going down. But yeah, and then we moved in. It's all right. And then we moved into the room which was next to the laundrette, which was like it was like a locker room or something, wasn't it? Lorna, you're upside down.
Upside down.
I thought the portrait thing.
Oh, there you go. And honestly,
She's fallen again.
Yeah, sorry, I've gone again speaking about it.
Yeah.
It was in the locker room. I didn't like that room. That for me was the intense one because I was like, I need to get out of here. And there's a few times happened over the course of the evening where I'm like, I need to leave. So, you just need to get out of the way. I don't know what it was. Don't know if it's just like you say that picking up residual. But I felt similar to Lorna, like my senses were quite heightened into obviously what we're experiencing, and just seemed to be picking up things a bit more, or just feeling more felt a lot more sensitive in there. But we weren't in there too long, so it wasn't too bad. But for the last 10 minutes, I turned to Lorna and I'm like, I need to get out of here. I'm gonna go crazy, which I said a few times over the course of the evening.
I think that the locker room, I think I mentioned earlier on to Jared, that when I was down there, I think I'd done my live on my own, and I'd popped down to just check on the team, see how they were doing, how our guests were doing. I think it was Cam's group, they were down there, and it wasn't until the next day I mentioned Cam about my legs, and it wasn't until the next day that Cam had mentioned about obviously the drugs that the patients would have been given in there would have kind of gave you that feeling of not being able to get heavy legs and like jelly legs basically. And I didn't click on it at the time. And like I say, it wasn't until the next day that Cam mentioned actually that potentially could have been the feeling of what Spirit was putting that impression on at the time. So that was really interesting. And I think that's why I mentioned about the red mist as well. Like it was like it was really strange. It was like a red, didn't move, but it was like a red. I can't remember what was the word I used earlier on. Can you remember?
Like a red ball, you said, or something, like an energy ball.
Like a red ball, but it just didn't move. But it was like wisping around, if that makes sense. It was really strange. And I definitely saw shadows out there, out that corridor. Definitely.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff like that.
Was the locker room, so the room where we started downstairs, was the locker room the one next to it?
Yeah, we walked through the little door.
At the back?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was downstairs, the locker room.
Yeah, I remember Jared felt like there was someone in that sort of like reflection of the glass in the corner in that locker room, but we were uncomfortable in there. There were a lot, it just felt like a really heavy energy down there compared, I mean, it's weird, but I remember going from there and going upstairs to the Naughty Boys corridor and feeling like just completely different than the sort of vibe that was down there.
Yeah.
See, everyone goes on about the Naughty Boy corridor, and actually, me when I was doing my lone live, and everyone knows. Like I say, I'll hold my hands up. I'm a scaredy cat. As much as I love doing this job, I'm a scaredy cat. So for me to go on my own in a place like that, I really pushed myself. And I actually found myself when I was up in the Naughty Boys corridor, and I had a few things, but I realised I'd gone further down into the building without even realising I was doing it, because I was obviously concentrating on the live as well, and I was calling out. And then I realised where I was. I was on the top floor, in the middle of the building. One way is the same length to get to one staircase is the other way, and I'm thinking, if something happens now, I'm the farthest away from the exit point as possible here. So I was like, right, I'm gonna have to head back towards the Naughty Boys corridor. But that was everyone goes on about that Naughty Boys corridor, but I think Lorna, you mentioned it, that you didn't feel quite that bad up there, did you?
No, I mean we got a lot of sort of like activity up there and stuff. I don't know if we're on to that. I don't want to talk too much about it yet because I don't know if we're on
that's literally that was the next part I was moving on to.
All right, okay. So when we got up there, I think we had what was that teddy bear, Chris?
So the proximity bear.
Yeah, and it lit
So
up.
you've literally got to physically touch it for it to light up.
Yeah, I remember we put one of them at the end of the corridor, and then we had this like a glow in the dark bouncy ball,
Yeah, yeah.
which I think shot the torch on a little bit and placed that on the floor, and lights out on the corridor, and that ball, it was moving,
That was mental, that
and
bit.
it really took me like sort of back, because I was like, wow, like because at first I thought, like, is it my eyes playing tricks on me? But the more I watched it, the more you could physically see this ball, and it weren't just going like one direction; it was going like forwards and then backwards, and it was going round even, and it was genuinely moving.
Oh, brilliant.
It was crazy when so obviously, as many people see, this is the Naughty Boys corridor. If you've not been before, and it has got a stigma attached to it, like it's this terrifying place. But like Lorna said, when we got there, as soon as you got up that flight of stairs, the energy changes completely. It's just completely different. But
Lighter.
and the ball which lit up, the glow in the dark ball, even now we're like, it's moving, and then I started running towards it and sat down, and and then I started asking, could they roll the ball to me, to roll it back so you could play like a game, and I'm like, because the last time I was there just over a month ago, we didn't actually really get anything in the Naughty Boys corridor, but that night I think again everyone was on the same sort of energy, same level, same open mindedness. That ball was physically moving, and I'm like, this. Mm-hmm. I was literally sat on the floor and, maybe like 2 feet away from it, so I could physically see it with my own eyes. This ball moving. I'm like, this is one of the best pieces of evidence I've ever seen. I should have filmed it really, but I didn't think, because obviously you get so engrossed in what's happening. Yeah. So
it's always good though. Yeah, go on.
Sorry, buddy. I was just saying. So, do you want to let us know about your little live vigil and lawn vigil you did?
Yeah.
In the
So, like I say, I didn't actually. There was. I set my music box. I think obviously my trigger music box I had, which guests will know about. I had one at one end, and then I had the bear at the other, and then I had the built-in REM pod millimeter that I placed in one of the the cupboards itself. I got the music box go off, but I wasn't 100% sure whether it potentially could have been me moving. But I'd moved quite far away from it at the time, so I'm not 100% sure whether it was, but I'm not 100% sure it wasn't. I didn't overly get much, so that's when I found myself kind of heading further into the building. Viewers were picking up on an angry lady, which put me on edge. I was there was talking. Now, with me and Claire were looking back at the live the other night, and we thought we heard what sounded like a groaning noise. And then I remember turning to Claire and I said, if I'd heard that on while I was doing it, I would have been out of there. I would have been physically out there. I couldn't have done it any longer. I really couldn't have. But then what we'd noticed is I was actually opening the door at the time, and then obviously I'd let go of the door behind me, and I think that's what it could have possibly been.
Yeah.
Definite voices. Something I heard footsteps. And then that's when I kind of realised, shit, sorry, I apologise.
Right.
I'm at the top of the building, in the middle of the building, in the dark. I need to kind of go back to that Naughty Boys corridor because I felt safe there, if that makes sense. And then I headed back to the Naughty Boys corridor, and this is where this really, really threw me a little bit, because I headed into, I can't remember what ward it was, but opposite the Naughty Boys corridor at the top of the stairs, there's a ward at the side. And I went in there and I did a bit of calling out, and part of the wards are still there. So I can't think what they're called, like the beds, where they put the beds, and you'd have partition.
Oh, the partition, yeah.
Yeah. I was stood in one of them, and I was hearing things, and I was calling out, and I think a few viewers had caught up on a potential hanging in there. And then I don't pick up on things, I don't, and I'm trying to work on myself at the minute, where I'm opening myself up even more to spirit on these investigations that we do. I don't get anything at all. And then all of a sudden, I got tears in my eyes. Um, I literally wanted to burst into tears, and people on the live saw me do this. So I actually ended up holding myself back a little bit because I didn't want to come across, I don't know, too theatrical on the live. And it wasn't until Claire, when I got back home the next day, and then Cam had actually said on the night as well, when I told her what happened, you should have just gone with it. You should have just let it do what Spirit wanted to do. And that was just really, really strange. I felt like I wanted to curl up in a ball and just cry profusely. And as soon as it had come, it had gone. And that just blew my mind, that, because like I say, I don't pick up on things. I don't get things. Every now and then I will, like, I don't get names or anything like that. It's just like kind of feelings, and that just for me just blew my mind. And then what I found myself is like in between the opposite sides of the partition beds, you've got like the corridor that runs down the middle of the room, don't you? And I found myself one stepping out of that particular that bed sit. When I was in that corridor, I felt unsafe, and all I wanted to do was go back into that bed sit. That's where I felt safe. So, and the fact that I think it was viewers were picking up a potential hanging, was that potentially what I was getting the emotion from? A potential nurse that worked there. I think the name Kaz or Carol was picked up on a live. And then as I'd moved further down, I was getting movement further down the corridor. I went into another bed sit, and I got a tickle on my wrist, and it felt like my sleeve on my hoodie was being gently pulled. Again, it wasn't until the next day when I spoke to Claire, and she said maybe it could have been that nurse taking bloods.
Wow.
And I was just, I didn't even think of that. I
Yeah.
didn't even think of that. It was just strange. It was, and like you say, when you're on your own and your senses are more heightened and your fear is more heightened, you're more vulnerable to spirit potentially coming towards you. I'm not saying negative spirits, any spirit. You're more vulnerable for spirit to come towards you, and they'll put them impressions on you. So putting yourself sometimes in that situation, and I know people don't like doing it, but sometimes putting yourselves in that situation and feeling them feelings can be sometimes really, really good thing to do. And I'm glad I did it.
Yeah, wow. So is that the first time you've done a lone vigil?
No, done it before, but I think this is on a different total scale, isn't
Yeah.
it?
It was weird though, because as you mentioned the other ward, I couldn't get a picture of this, but me and Lorna, when we were in there, it was weird. It was still
Yeah.
chill, but there was that room, and then there was another room where Lorna were like, it was just, I don't know, we had some weird. I'll let Lorna tell you about what happened, but it was very weird.
Yeah, I remember that ward that you said, Chris. I knew exactly which one you meant when you were talking about the bays sort of things in there, in that
Yeah.
middle part. But I remember we were stood right at the very. Do you know before that doorway you go through to the next room and the sort of that last bay on the left? We were stood in there. We
No,
had is
the
that where
last bit
you?
on the left.
Yeah.
So that's where I think I was drawn to on the live. That was
Oh,
after I'd had my little meltdown. I was drawn to the one at the end on the left. How strange! How
that is
strange is
literally
that?
where we were stood, and we put the little bear in the corridor. And at this point, I didn't know you had to touch this bear go off, and so we put the bear there, and I'd like shuffled around, and I think Jared, asked his like, "Is there any like spirits there? Is anyone with us?" And I thought my shuffling round had set the bear off because the bear lit up like an actual Christmas tree. And then this other guy, some other people like came to join us. I think there were like 3 more people from our group. And I was saying like I think I've touched I think I've like walked near it. So then I'm walking around the bear and I'm thinking, why is it not going off? And this guy then said to me, he was like, you have to touch it to make it go off. And oh, I nearly shivered. I was like, no way. But then Jared were drawn to the bay across from it, so the last one on the right, directly across. So we put the bear in there, and it was so responsive to the questions we were asking it. There were a lady in our group. She were asking, like, is potentially like a matron, is it like a matron type like figure, that like person that's with us? And I don't think it either lit up to that one or it were a patient, but it was one of them, and it was so responsive and like correctly answering as well, which I thought was like crazy.
Yeah, it was weird that part. I tell you what was weird. So we were absolutely fine, and then I said, I'm just gonna sit on the floor. So Lorna like sat next to her. So we just sat on the floor, we're asking these questions and everything. All of a sudden, I got this horrible feeling. I literally jumped up. I've got this awful feeling that someone's bomb shuffling towards us, and I can't see him. But I genuinely got this impression. I could see it in my mental mind of someone like bomb shuffling towards me. Who, like, not something like possessed. That's probably the wrong word, but that kind of feeling. I'm like, I don't like that. And then we end up moving because the bear stopped being responsive at that point as well. But yeah, it was like someone coming towards me, and I'm like, I don't think it was even a bad thing. It was just, it really, because this is what I mean. Like, I've had experiences, but some of these experiences in this place were a bit like, this is weird. Like, this is taking me to a whole different place.
Whole new level.
Yeah, when Chris, what you said earlier about you feeling that your legs were funny, and then for Jared to get that kind of mental image of somebody that's like sort of incapable to walk, like potentially, that week that they're having to like sort of drag themselves with their hands. I think it all comes back to like being like that heavily, like sort of sedated in where they are and stuff like that. So it made sense.
But again, it's good to be in this group where everyone's in the same mindset and you can say exactly what you see, exactly how you feel, even if it's sometimes sounds the silliest thing in the world, but everyone's open to it, and then everyone's accepting of what you pick up on.
I said it at the beginning, didn't I? And I say it on all the events. It wasn't just that event. I say it on all the events. Look, if you're getting something, don't be shy to shout out. We're all in it here to even if you don't believe in it and you're potentially getting something, just shout it out, because there's been so many times where I've had guests come to me at the end of the night and gone, I had this in that room, and another guest that they haven't known, not part of their group, they've had exactly the same feeling. And I've said, look, if that's what you're feeling, just tell everyone, because someone across the room to you, or someone in a group that might do that area later on at night, might get that same feeling. And that for me, when people don't know each other are picking up on the same thing, that kind of, I'm not saying it is paranormal, but it's not a coincidence. It's definitely not a coincidence.
Yeah, I know what you
And
mean.
it just confirms that little bit of belief that there's something there that is doing this to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And the room next door to that, there was like another little room. I think is that the nurses' quarters or something? There was another tiny little room which had it had a toilet in. There was a door there. That one, me and Lorna went in there on our own, and that was weird. It changed again.
It was like, do you know what's that? I can't think what film it is, but do you know when you see like the sort of dispensaries, and you can imagine the people walking up and getting the little paper cups because it had the window for it and everything. You can imagine getting stuff.
Yeah.
It was literally exactly like that, like down to everything. I think they're even still like, the cabinets in there and stuff. One thing I did notice in that room, and I noticed it in the room before, is I was trying to look out one of the windows, and I'm not, particularly short or anything. And I remember saying to Jared, like, the windows are so high up, and I was like, maybe it's as much as for people like not being able to see out, but maybe so people couldn't see in it the things that were actually happening in there, and the things that were actually, being patients and things like that. Because all around the building, the windows, the base of them was so high, you couldn't see through them. You could get the light, but that's it. But
It's funny.
following on from that, sorry, go on.
Sorry, I was saying it's funny that you mentioned that. So in just getting some pictures today off Google, there was one of the ex-nurses who used to work there and said everyone should stay away from that place. It's pure evil. So, but he didn't really say what she'd experienced, and she used to work there, and she weren't bigging it up as this paranormal hotspot. She's telling everyone to don't even step foot onto the grounds.
It doesn't surprise me. But
It was
it's always I think I mentioned it when I think I was down in the theatre room. Back in those days, the, the, they weren't. It's like the whole witches thing. That they basically were us, but we're not getting hanged for what our beliefs are. So it's kind of the same with them. Obviously, we've got the whole mental health now. We know a lot more about it, what it entails. Back then, they didn't. They just thought they were insane. So it's. Can you imagine being called insane? Yeah, and you're having all these things done to you, and you're being drugged up, and you're being having experiments being given to you. Can you imagine what that is being? And it's like I said before, what's being left behind because of that. It doesn't surprise me what that lady had said.
Yeah, well, that's one of the other things that crossed my mind as well is if some of these people passed and they don't even know they've passed because they still feel like they're in this hospital and they're still going through some of them experiences what actually happened. And that's what I find when when you're communicating with spirit and maybe asking out. Sometimes it's how you ask as well because you also got to think of like even on the Naughty Boys corridor, you're talking to children and it's how you, and that's what I enjoyed about this is again going back to our group and how it worked. It's like no one was being over, what's the word? Like over like, spirit, can you move this table? Spirit, can you do this? And it was like everyone was on the same page of like, we'll ask, and it's sincerely done. It's not overdone. We're not asking them to throw tables across the room, you know what I mean? As sometimes you do see that,
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's like I said at the beginning of the night, and I'll refer back to that again. It's about respect. You see too many people, oh, spirit, if you don't want me here, make me leave, or if you do this, you do that. You're not going to get activity by doing that. It's all about respect. It really is, and I'm doing a lot of learning as well, investigating at the minute because I've got to, and it's like you say when you're talking to children, like being down on their level, um, being engaging in what you would to a normal child, playing hide and seek. And I'm a sucker for it, and I do it all the time. I ask for spirit. They might not know the spirit, so why? Who are you talking to?
that's a
Who are
good
you?
point,
Who's spirit? Who's spirit? And I always end up finding myself going at the minute. Spirit, gentlemen, sir,
Yeah.
madame, are you here? Because sometimes they don't realise the spirit, and that's why you've got to be open a lot more to your questioning of getting them coming forward and trusting you.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. Because this is one of the things that's sort of crossed my mind recently, especially doing like the live investigation stuff, is that just that saying spirit all the time, and it's like it's not done in a bad way. It's just because we don't know who we're contacting at that first. But then you're like, actually, they're probably thinking, what spirit are you? The spirits to them, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, this
Yeah.
leads us on to the next part, right? So, me and Lorna, this is where, for me and Lorna, the investigation got. I know it was weird anyway, but this is where the thing just got messed up. And I'd say I'm using that word again because this is exactly what happened. And I think this is the most uncomfortable, but you're not uncomfortable in a way where you feel like you have to get out in like, oh, I'm threatened. It was, I said to Lorna, I said, I'm physically going mad. I said, I don't know how I feel, and I feel like I shouldn't be here, but I genuinely don't know. I'm not agitated or hangry or angry at anyone. I'm just, I might have been at that point, but it was really weird, which was obviously this area here. Obviously, I can't get the best picture. So this is where they used to, which was the operating theatre, wasn't it? And in this room, where all the windows are, everyone, there was a load of chairs. And I mean a load of chairs. And that was weird. Just walking in there, you seeing all them chairs, you're like, that's weird. And there was like a trolley what they used to put the bodies who had passed away on, like the coffin thing went with the metal lid, and you shut the lid. But as soon as you went in there, it was weird.
So the end of that corridor was the morgue as well.
Oh right, okay.
I've just realised. I didn't realise on the night on the. I could be wrong, but I'm sure at the end of that corridor, that's where the morgue is. But you can't get access in there now because of the. I think the roof's caved in.
Yeah.
But yeah,
that makes sense.
I think we. You say you had an experience down there. I had a couple of regulars who actually put themselves in that coffin, and she burst into tears. She got an overwhelming sense of wanting to cry, and I'll mention his name. Bob. Bob joined us a couple of years ago because his wife Lynn is an avid investigator, and he was a total skeptic, and he is now becoming on the fence believing because he's had too many things that has happened that he can't explain. So that for me, what happened this night is even more pronounced. So I've known Bob for a few years now, and with him being a regular on, I know his mannerisms, I know his way of investigating. He likes going off on his own and just sitting on his own. And I remember him leaving the area, and he was like literally tunnel vision. He didn't move his head, he didn't acknowledge anyone, which again, totally unlike Bob. And then we realised they were the two people that had been in that coffin that had their experiences. So for me, again, knowing what Bob was like, and knowing, I think it was Christina, I think it was, knowing what they're like, that just kind of threw me. The fact that they were the only two that went in that coffin, they're the only two that happened to them.
Well, when we were down there, because me and Lorna were sat in there because they were doing a few experiments, and we were like, personally, we didn't feel as comfortable being around that area. I don't know what it was. It was just something, as if something flicks in your brain. I can't explain it. So we sat in that room, and we was in there for what felt like an eternity. And it was probably literally 5 minutes. It's because Lorna said that, didn't you? Like, it's the longest
Yeah.
night, but it's the shortest night at the same time. It's the weirdest.
I remember saying this to my mum the day after, that the whole time it felt like you'd been there for 10 minutes because it went that fast, but then like 10 years at the same time, so it just kept going. But then, like, it didn't feel like you'd been there long at all. It was the weirdest thing.
Yeah, and like you said, when we went into that room and we just sat in the chairs, it was again, like you say, you were like, I'm not agitated, I just need to leave. And I honestly, I couldn't explain. I'm trying to explain to Lorna like how I feel, but I physically can't because it didn't make sense. Like I'm trying to, but it was honestly, I can't. I've never experienced anything like that. So, I'm like, is it residual energy picking up on? Is it someone who's still obviously wandering around, who we're picking up on, and what that he would have maybe gone through? But then we went into the side room at the side of this, and that was awful. Because at first, when we walked in there,
Yeah.
was it Ross? Is he called Ross, who was our team leader?
Robbie.
Robbie.
Yeah.
And we walked in the room, and one of the team leaders was in there, and she was like, "I feel terrible. I feel," and he's like, "Jared, how do you feel?" I went, "I'm all right at the minute. It feels all right." But it was like she was getting affected. Then all of a sudden, I don't know if something changed or something switched on, but we're all in there, and it was just, I'm like, I feel like this gentleman stood in the door, and I felt I had to leave because I thought I was going to be sick, and then it was like I was on a ship, and the energy, like the floorboards are just moving, honestly. So I walked out, someone touched me on the hips, so I went, right, I'll go back in, and it just got weirder and weirder, and I think even Lorna at that point was like, I need to go.
I need to double check
Yeah,
on
it
that.
was.
Sorry, Lorna, go on.
Oh, sorry, I've got a delay, so I never know when someone's going to speak. My bad. But it were, yeah, going into them rooms as well. I don't know what the sad rooms were, but my guess is that there was still some sort of like, operating theatre, or where like they'd get ready for stuff. There were like little sinks in there with mirrors on the wall, and I think one of them had like a bed stood up and stuff in it, and a shower room. but you just felt like, do you know, like you really shouldn't be somewhere, and not in the sense that doing anything wrong, but the atmosphere was just like down there. You did feel like you were going mad. I remember we walked back out through that door in the picture, and it led to like a stairwell. And I remember Jared just like pacing around, and he was like, "I don't know what's happening." And I was like, honestly, I felt the same. It was really like surreal down there. The bottle room as well near the end. That were really cool to see that.
Yeah, there was just so many. Just this area to me was because I'd never been in there before, so it's not even like because I've been to Newsham before. I knew what to expect, but I'd never been in there, so I didn't have a clue of any backstory. Didn't have a clue of anything, and to me, it was the place where I'm like, the longer we stay, the longer I'm just gonna go mad. I can't. It's just really weird, and I'm like you say, I've never had these experiences. You know, picking stuff up, yeah, but to be physically, like you say, someone's embodying you, or because I've literally just remembered as well, because when we're sat in the chairs, I'm like, if I'm not careful here, someone's gonna either shadow me or they're gonna come. I genuinely felt like something's gonna happen, and I'm like, and that, again, it needed to leave, but it was nothing negative. Nothing felt negative. It was just. I just can't explain it. It was just like a brain fart, as if you just shut off and you're just going through emotions rather than say.
And yeah, I need to double check on that because I'm sure. I think Lorna, you mentioned about the room being wobbly. I'm sure when I'd gone down, I think it was it Robbie's group I was with? So you might have been potentially there. I'm sure someone had mentioned about it being uneasy on their feet.
Yeah.
So that'd be interesting if it wasn't your group. I'm sure it was Robbie I was down there with.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
say we had a bit of wandering around, and then the majority of the group stayed in that room with all the chairs, as you can see where the window is on this one. And they had the spirit box going off, and they got loads of stuff coming through. But I was like, we like say we went for a wander, then we went back to the main hall just to get some fresh air, just because it got that intense. It was just this. It's weird. Honestly, I can't explain it. It's just weird.
yeah, yeah. I do
Yeah,
remember now. I'm sure I was there. Yeah,
You're gonna say
but
something,
that I
Lorna?
remember. So you look at that them three windows. I'm sure. Uh, where did you see a shadow, Jared? You said you saw a shadow. Whereabouts did you see a shadow?
That was in that side room.
Oh,
Like it's
right.
like
Okay.
a
Right.
doctor's quarter or something, but it was like another room, you know. So you can look through into that room, can't you? Through like
Yeah.
a window thing.
Partition.
Yeah,
I'm sure that was again. I think it was the two regulars, Bob and Christina. They felt uneasy in that room, and I'm sure that's after they'd gone into the coffin. They'd gone into that room, which was like kind of behind, wasn't it? It was kind of, but the walls weren't there, but
yeah,
yeah.
the studs were. Yeah, yeah. I'm sure it was.
yeah. Like you say, it's just the craziest night, and that to me, I think as well because it was getting, was at I think it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, 2:30 at that point. So um, I know they say it's like the witching hour kind of thing, but if anything, it's like everything just seems to, the energy and seems to just become more active, like, towards the end, or more experiences seem to be happening.
100%. It was so non-stop the whole night throughout the whole experience. I thought there weren't one room really. I mean, we got a lot, and it might not happen all the time, but I do feel like every room we went in, there was something that happened, or like some type of thing, whether it was like tapping, or like the bouncy ball or anything. It were really good.
No, I totally agree there. So, Chris, we are I say coming towards the end. Well, we've done over an hour. I looked at the thing. I'm like, all right, we're on half an hour. Like, we've got plenty of time. I'm thinking, bloody hell, we're coming towards the end, and we've still got a lot to talk about. And now I'm like, we're actually on an hour. So, a few people who obviously watch Paranormal Living mentioned about your page. I'm going to share the live you did on Paranormal Living, but I've also put a link here. So, for those, if you want to tell us where you can find us, mate, where you can find us, where you can find yourself, and of course, your website as well.
So obviously, yeah, we've got the Lone Vigils Paranormal Investigations page. Obviously, we promote all our events on there. We have a bit of a laugh and joke on there with our funnies. We also try and get guests involved with different games on there as well to get a bit of interaction. And then obviously you've got the website www.lonevigilsparanormalinvestigations.co.uk where you can book your events. So hopefully I'm going to try and get Newsham back end of this year, hopefully again.
We'll definitely be there again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think as well, going back to that place, it could be like, I know every day is different from different, but like you could go again and something completely different. You could experience. That's the
We
cool
could have
thing about
nothing.
doing this.
We
Yeah.
could have nothing.
Well, that's what I love, and I think that's what's great. You can go to a venue so many times and have different experiences every time. That's
Yeah,
what I love about
absolutely.
the paranormal, and I'm sure everyone else does. What's your next investigation you've got coming up, Chris?
So we're off the next couple of weeks. Quite nice. We've not booked anything in for Easter holidays because obviously you've got family time with your family. So I think the next one is a Jeb. Oh no, sorry, Kirby Moorside Memorial Hall. I think we've got 2 spaces left on that if anyone's interested. And then end of the month we've got a nice 12-hour sleepover in Jedburgh Jail. So I think we're sold out. Well, we are sold out of that. I don't need to think about that. We have been sold out for a while. I think we've just sold out of Halloween, Jedburgh Jail as well.
Wow.
It's one of our big events. Jedburgh 12-hour sleepovers, and I'm sure I'll be doing a live in the men's wing.
I've always wanted to do a jail. That is like one of the things on my hit list is to be able to go to an old prison.
Yeah, that's strange. That the men's wing that I'm talking about there, they don't actually physically. So it's obviously a normal museum during the day. They physically don't open that to the public because they have things happen during the day. So they don't actually open that men's wing to the public during the day. So you only get to ever see in there if you ever do a paranormal investigation. So yeah, not really looking forward to that.
Well, finally, the final question I'm going to ask you both is Newsham Park. What would you rate it out of 10 from them experiences? Lorna, I'll let you go first.
A solid 100 out of 10. No doubt in that.
Well, I was going to say 11 out of 10, but you've just totally blown me out the park there, Lorna.
It is a
Yeah,
must. It is a must go out
yeah,
for anyone, even those who may be on the fence. Like you say, Lorna was. She like, who's a believer? She put her hand up. Who's a non-believer? She put her hand up. Who's in the middle? She put her hand up. Just to have that experience and just to be more open-minded and just to go and look at the place and also people around you, what people experience. It's a must go to, and it say definitely. Even though I'm 100% believer in that sense, that just gives me so much more evidence and more proof of life after death and obviously spirit around us.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's why I think we're going to try and get it in again for back end of the year. I think 'cause
Well,
it's just something. It just draws you back, and it's like I said, it's the holy grail for paranormal investigators in the UK. It really is.
yeah. Well, we'll definitely be joining you again, buddy. So, Lorna and
Well,
Chris,
Can
you
I
got
just apologise to you both because I did want to spend a bit more time with you guys just on the night, but we had a couple of lads that I had to deal with on the night. So I do apologise for that. I did want to spend some more time with you guys just so we could have kind of talked about potentially what all three of us have got together, you know what I mean? So I just want to apologise for that. But yeah, it was a pleasure having you both along. It really
no,
was. It really
honestly,
was.
mate, don't worry about it. It
yeah,
was awesome, wasn't it?
we can always do that again. I have no doubt there's going to be another time.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Chris, obviously, big thank you for coming on the podcast, and Lorna to coming on with us as well, and joining me
Yeah,
down at
pleasure.
Newsham Park. It's the biggest thing on the hit list, and she finally got to do it first.
Do you believe,
Yeah,
Lorna? No.
I believe now. I am a solid believer now.
Good, 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 good.
But see,
Wow.
that's what I love, like, because the fact that it was just on the drive down, and we were talking about stuff as you do, and we're just talking about different bits, and like you said, you wanted the experience, and you physically did, and just other things how and that was the cool thing as well to see Lorna, like how sensitive she actually got and like things she was picking up on, and even some of the stuff I was experiencing, she was experiencing, and it's like it's
Yeah, I
absolutely
think
brilliant.
I think people don't realise sometimes, and I pushed Claire, my wife. I pushed her because I don't think she believed how sensitive she could have been, and until you do these things, you don't. I think people don't realise until they do it how sensitive, and as long as you're open to it, how sensitive you can be.
Yeah, I remember the last thing I'll say, but I remember saying to Jared how, like, in this sort of like time, where, we live on social media, we've got 9 to 5s, you're always busy, you don't have that time really to, if you truly allowed that sense in, you'd probably experience so much more. But I think because we've got such busy lives that you block it all out, and then to have that
Yeah,
chance to really open up and, take in the surroundings and where you are and actually sort of feel where you are, it really cool in that way that there's so much more than what you think you can feel.
that
Yeah.
analog is spot on, Lorna. Spot on, that analog. It really is, because, like you say, you're so busy, and this is what I say. You don't have to investigate at night. You can do it during the day, but you're doing your daily life thing, and you like you say, you're so busy, you don't even think about it. So to come on and be open, that's when things happen.
Sorry, I was on mute then. I was trying to mute it as you finished talking, like pressing. So, of course, again, big thank you to Chris and Lorna. Make sure you check out Lorna Vigils on Facebook, guys. Here is the Facebook page again, and join them on an investigation. Honestly, they're a fantastic team. I'm not saying that just because Chris is on the podcast, but we had an absolute crack in that, and it was
Brilliant.
just a
Thank you,
good
Jared.
vibe. And I'd
Yeah.
just like to say thank you again, mate, and thank you for making Lorna's dream come true
Yeah.
to go to Newsham Park. So, guys, thank you
Yeah.
so much. Thank you so much for watching and joining in tonight, and for all your comments and stuff. I really do appreciate it. Like I say, I'm going to share Chris's page on our social media and the live he did, because a few people have said they want to see
You can
it.
have a good laugh. You can have a good laugh.
So, guys, take care, stay safe, and I will see you all very, very soon. Love and light. Adios.